All right, let me tell you guys about our very first sponsor. When we first set out to make this podcast, we had absolutely no idea what we were doing, but we knew we needed a place to record, edit, host, and distribute our show. Luckily for us, we found Anchor, which has all of these services in one spot in an easy-to-use format on desktop or mobile, and it's free, which fit really nicely into our beginner budget of $0. We were able to distribute our podcast to all of the major platforms like Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's Mel.
And Kel.
And this is It's Called Culture.
Ever heard of it?
Hi guys, welcome to an episode where we are going to talk about boys and dating with immigrant parents.
Immigrant parents, yes. It's quite interesting how, our Portuguese parents wouldn't allow us to date. Well, mine anyway, wouldn't allow us to date, but my brother was okay with dating whoever he wanted.
I was an only child, so I had no comparison, but I can see how that would be a difference for a boy versus a girl, a daughter.
Yeah, because, with girls, they were worried about getting pregnant, and boys, they didn't worry about them getting pregnant.
The boys, they also don't have to worry about them menstruating near the wine, so that's a plus. Okay, but before we even start talking about how bad we had it, we have to at least acknowledge how bad our parents' generation had it.
Oh my God. Do you know your parents' dating story?
All I know is that they met at church, which I think was a pretty common place to meet because it was, my mom says, was the only place I went. It was the only place I was allowed to go. So I don't even know how you meet someone at church. You're just looking at them from a distance, you can't talk during church.
Right, you're supposed to be praising the Lord Jesus, not looking for men.
I know. Is it one of those things like you're just giving each other googly eyes from the one church pew to another, and then at the end you do the sign of peace and you're dating? I don't understand how that comes to be, but
yeah, did you get asked to be boyfriend or girlfriend, or was it just okay, we're just kind of both single, we go to the same church, our parents know your parents, so this is just gonna happen between us?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
My parents met out there. They're, like I said, they're from two different villages in the same island. So my dad would walk to my mom's village for work, I believe. I think he was delivering milk, and he saw my mom through the window, and he would talk to her every day through the window, little by little, each day. And then I guess he asked my mom out, I guess to go to the fashta, because I think that's what it was. And my mom said, hold on, I have to ask my father. So obviously, I guess, assuming my grandfather gave my mom approval, but my mom had a chaperone, which was my grandmother. So my grandmother followed my dad and my mom around at this fashta. And then I remember my dad saying, they would always try to, lose my grandmother.
Two crazy kids.
And I guess that's how they started dating.
There was always, when you hear stories of people from the older generations talking about dating, it's always through the window.
Yeah.
It was always one of them was on the street, the guy was outside on the street, and the girl was inside the window, and they could only talk through the window.
I envisioned my mom was just sitting there brushing her long hair in a Disney movie, and my father just sees her from a distance, just brushing her long brown hair.
What kind of game could they have been spitting at that point? What could they have been spitting for?
My
game?
dad's lugging cow's milk. How attractive.
I don't even know. I don't even know what they could have done to attract a mate at that point.
I'm wondering too if it's just like I said before, it's just hey, we're both single, why don't we just try this? I don't know. You think they had a lot of options to choose from?
No.
So they were we're both single, hey.
Are your parents roughly the same age?
Yeah, they're only a year apart.
Okay. But like, what was she doing, or what was he doing in her town, walking by her window? He doesn't even go here.
He said he was delivering milk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Milk, I mean, she had no contact with the outside world at all besides the milk delivery man. So your dad really is the milkman.
He is. Damn it. Yeah, no, so it's funny to hear the story. And I always ask, like, my mom, like, if they've had, like, other boyfriends. I don't know if you've, like, ever asked your parents. Like, I've never really asked my dad if he's had other girlfriends. But I'll be like, Mom, did you ever have, like, other boyfriends before Dad? And she'd always tell me no. Dad was the first one. And I'm like, like, I don't know. Like, they're so uncomfortable to talk to us about it.
I don't think I've ever asked my dad that, but I feel like the answer would be no, but I don't really know.
Right.
But then my mom, the answer was yes. And it was someone we went to school with's dad.
Get out of here. Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, like, but obviously it was like before my dad's time, and I'm sure they dated very briefly.
Right.
It was just funny.
And she probably met him at church.
I don't know where she met him. I don't know. Probably.
You're gonna have to tell me who it is off air. We try to like keep names out of this, but I'm dying to know who your mom dated. How was dating for you when you were growing up?
I don't think it was bad. I mean, I had like little like, I mean, we just talked about, we had just interviewed Connie, or had Connie on as a guest, I should say, over the past couple episodes. And we talked about how the fact that her boyfriend now was my first boyfriend in like 5th grade or something.
Right.
And at that time, I don't think there was like having a boyfriend wasn't even a real thing. So like, I don't think my parents had anything to really say about that. I mean, yeah, maybe you'd talk on the phone or something, but like you weren't even really like going out and doing anything at that point.
Right. How about when it was like serious and it was like your first actual like serious boyfriend? Serious, I mean, you know, how serious is it when they're like high school boyfriends? But you know what I mean.
Right. I feel so. Your stories are going to be different, but I feel like my parents took it like surprisingly well.
Right.
Like I was able to like go to their house and I would sleep there often.
No.
And so I don't know that my parents were actually like willingly letting me sleep there, but it would be a whole thing that like I'd be there, we'd be watching a quote unquote movie. It would be really late. I fell asleep, Dad.
Yeah.
I fell asleep. And I just happened to not come home till the next day, which used to go up my dad's ass sideways, I will say, because I would just literally fall asleep and not call. Like they'd be texting me like, "Where are you?"
Right.
And I would just not respond until the next morning when I woke up at like 8 a.m. and I'd be like, "Oops, sorry, I fell asleep last night." Where they probably spent all night thinking I was like dead in a ditch somewhere.
Exactly. You just like, they didn't sleep all night until you answered.
Like that's pretty horrible. And I did that pretty regularly.
Oh man. So for me, I couldn't really sleep out. I had to always lie. I had to lie a lot. I had to tell my parents, more my mom, not really my dad, that I was sleeping at so-and-so's house. It was always a so-and-so's. It was either like a friend or a cousin's house that I would always be sleeping at. But no, like I couldn't, at least like for high school, guys couldn't call my house. I couldn't even go out with a guy. If a guy did call my house or I was going to have a wait for a potential phone call, I would have to call a friend on 3-way. Like call a friend, talk to them, and wait for the guy to like call through, like call wait in. And then I would answer the next line and hang up with my friend just so like my house phone wouldn't ring. So my father wouldn't hear the phone ringing and pick it up and hear that it's a boy.
That's a lot of effort to go through.
So much work to just talk to a boy on the phone.
Like, was this as young as like middle school? Like, was I the friend?
You might have been. I feel like when it was like at like middle school, it was more okay because my dad knew who it was almost. And usually if I was talking to a boy, it was like to help with homework. But I think once I got into high school, I couldn't like, Yeah, like I remember freshman year, I got like a Valentine. I couldn't take it home. I kept it in my locker.
Oh my god.
Because I like could not, there couldn't even be like a sense of
love in the air.
So that was like high school. College, had a boyfriend that you guys all knew too. He was a friend of like everyone. And so that was like the one boy that I could have over a lot, because at that point I was already in college. But before that, I had this guy in high school come over, and I had to be supervised. So the like first boyfriend in like high school, like not serious, whatever, I don't know. He came over and my little cousin had to stay in the room and supervise us.
No.
Yeah. And stay in there the whole time.
Oh, that's brutal. I definitely had that thing about, you were always saying you were sleeping at a friend's house and you were really like doing God knows what. But for me, it was never,
partying.
It never felt like it was like so much like specifically like boy or dating related. It was more just like, I'm going to a party or something.
Yeah, I would have to lie about that too. I couldn't like tell. I couldn't say I was going to like so-and-so's house to go drink. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to go. We weren't even old enough to drink.
I would tell my parents I was at so-and-so friend's house, like in town, and I would be like on the train to Boston meeting up with strangers that I met off the streets of Boston when I like went to a Red Sox game or something. And just the fact that they had like absolutely no idea where I actually was. Like if something actually happened or went wrong, like they'd be like, no, she's in town right over here. And I'm like completely
I've had
somewhere else.
So many situations like that where I was like, wow, if I were to wind up missing, my parents would be like, oh, she's at Melissa's house. And then Melissa would be like, no, she's not. She like went to New Jersey, Atlantic City or something.
Why did they never call? They never verified that information. Like,
no.
They must have known. They had to know it wasn't true. But like at that point, what are you going to do?
Like that, for the amount of lies that I spewed at my parents, and I told them like they must have thought I was at my like, there was just no way I was hanging out with my cousins and my friends that much.
Right.
Like every weekend or even like 2 days, 3 nights during the week, I'm hanging out with the same person. You're not questioning that.
Especially for me, because I feel like my house was the house that you would sleep over.
Yeah.
So, or that like people would sleep over typically. Like,
yeah.
More often than not, I wasn't sleeping at someone's house. Like people were sleeping at my house.
Right.
And so the fact that I was always just like sleeping at so-and-so's house, it's like,
it's weird.
You've gone 15 years not sleeping at their house. Why at drinking age are you all of a sudden sleeping at their house every weekend? Like it didn't make any sense.
Yeah, they never like get the concept of like dating. Even like my mom, even now, since obviously I'm still single and I'm on these like miserable apps that you have to hear about me complaining about all the time. They like don't understand how like difficult it is, and they don't get why it's difficult.
Like, why aren't you just waiting for the milkman to come by the door? Is your cheese guy single?
He's older. Maybe he has a son or something. Yeah, they just think like, oh, like you can't find somebody? But no, how about all the times I was trying to find somebody as I was growing up, you guys were stopping me.
Okay, so I just heard this story like a couple weeks ago about somebody in my family, and I just told you this at lunch.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe this is how your mom wanted you to found someone. But I had an aunt, or great aunt, I should say, who was born, and as an infant at birth, I don't even know how to explain this story. The person who would then go on to become her husband, who at the time was 18 years old, held her as a baby and said, I'm going to marry this woman, and then did, however many years later. And it's such a weird story to me because it's just, it just feels like it's how things were back then, but it's just so odd.
It's such a weird story.
So maybe your mom just, when you were born, she was looking for a grown man to look at you and say, you just birthed my wife.
God, I hope not. I hope there was no one holding me, telling me I was their future wife. But if that's the case, where are they?
I'm of age now. You may step forward.
That's like so disturbing though, to think that that's like borderline grooming, but not grooming, because it's a baby and doesn't understand yet.
I feel bad even saying it because it was told to me as if it was like a romantic story, and I just couldn't find the romance.
Yeah,
in it. I was like, no, that's not a romance. That's weird.
Yeah. But they ended up being married, and they stayed married for whatever long.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know.
Maybe your husband just hasn't been born yet, Kelly.
Damn. That's kind of sad. Almost, 35? And I'm still waiting for my husband. Oh, that's morbid.
How did your parents react to boys if they were Portuguese versus if they weren't Portuguese?
My dad still wasn't having it. Because I think either way they can get me pregnant. It doesn't matter what they are. Because a lot of my cousins had young pregnancies, so I think that's why in his brain, like, he's like, yeah, it's not happening to this one. Like, he locked me up as like Fort Knox. Like, nothing was happening to this one. But I did have a quote unquote Portuguese boyfriend from the Azores when I went out there. So like for the total of my 3 weeks that I was out there vacationing, and I feel like he was okay with me hanging out with him. I don't know why, but he was okay with me hanging out with this guy. So I don't understand the difference of that there and then over here.
Yeah, I feel like that's like a rite of passage to have a Portugal boyfriend when you visit the Azores, because I know quite some few people that has happened to, including myself. But it felt different too. Like the quote unquote Portugal boyfriend that I had out there was like way older than me.
Yeah.
And my parents didn't care.
It was a whole different vibe.
I mean, he was like he had like a real job, and he was like he'd pack his lunch and like go off on the bus to his construction job in the morning, and then I would like see him when he came home from work. And I'm like, I was like 15, so
he's like, okay, like I have you here for 3 weeks. Like I have a quote unquote wife for 3 weeks, and then she's gonna leave. Then what?
Well, I'll tell you then what. Then he was continuing to text my telemóvel. I had a Nokia at the time. It was like we got this like special phone that we bought out there that we like, I don't know if we like prepaid minutes on it or something to that effect.
Yeah, you would have to buy minutes, I remember.
But it was like a specific like, Portugal cell phone.
Yeah.
But it was like one of those Nokia bricks.
Where you played like Snake on it.
Yeah. So that was the phone that we had out there. It was a special cell phone. While I was out there, I gave him that cell phone number, and we would text on that phone. Like in Portuguese, I'd be texting him with my like T9 and my limited vocabulary, and I'd be texting him in Portuguese. And like I remember he just kept sending back, like at the time it was those images where like, you know, you put like a bunch of like parentheses and like periods and at symbols, and it makes like a rose or like a teddy bear or something. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Big pictures, like elaborate, like 50 lines of parentheses.
Yeah, you gotta keep hitting enter, space it right correctly. Yes. Oh, so he was advanced.
So he was texting like whole bunches of that to me, like these teddy bears and these roses and all this stuff.
He was in love with you.
And then it was like, you know, most of our texts were just about like when we were gonna meet up. You know, meet me behind the soccer field, or like meet me at the festa tonight, like whatever it was. But parents just didn't care out there for some reason.
Right. Like so I didn't have like a phone to text him. So like what happened was I became friends with his sister. I met his sister first. And then I remember my mom bringing me to their house, because my mom like obviously knew their parents. So then all of a sudden I see this like man come in. I see this man come in. I'm like, he's beautiful. I'm like, oh my God. Like, this is going to be a great 3 weeks. So it started off me hanging out with the system more and more. And then finally, like, I got to like I wiggled my way into him. Not literally.
He wiggled his way into you.
But I don't think he was old. Like, I don't think he was older because he didn't work yet. I don't think.
Oh yeah, mine had his lunchbox packed and he was going on the bus to work. And I was like, I think you're too old for me, my friend.
I like doubt they even had like a. Did they even have like an age thing out there? Like, you know, like 18. It's like 18 here to like.
Yeah. I don't know, but whatever we were doing out there was not legal in the U.S. It was, the age difference was not legal in the U.S. at that time.
Yeah, I remember being like so upset, like leaving him because I was just like, oh my God, like I'm never going to see him again. And quite frankly, I never did see him again.
Yeah. Oh, same. And I remember I still had that Portugal phone. I don't know why or how it still worked back in the U.S., but I was still receiving text messages from him once I got back home. And I was like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm never going to see you again.
Right.
Like, so I just like stopped responding after some time. And I was like, yeah, this is
So
dumb.
do you think you might run into him again this summer?
We're Facebook friends.
Oh, you guys are? Did he find you? You found him?
I'm pretty sure he found me.
That'll be funny to run into him. Remember me?
Remember we used to play foosball at the festa?
My mom always chats with my aunt in Portugal through like Instagram, so like they can like see each other, whatever. It's funny, it's cute. So I'll always like, obviously my aunt knows I'm like single and whatever, and I don't know what my mom tells her. So she's always like, oh, when is Kelly gonna come here? Like obviously like in Portuguese, like when is Kelly gonna come here so she can find a boyfriend? And I'm like, lady, I might have to hit you up on that offer.
Is this whole episode just like a pitch to come date Kelly?
No, maybe. If I were to go out there now, God knows. I don't know. Like I don't know what's out. I don't know. It's been so long since I've been out there. I don't know what it's like out there.
Well, our friend had a Portugal boyfriend, and then she brought him to the U.S. and married him.
Yeah,
has children with him now.
Yeah, she did. It worked out for her.
So one of the things for me, I feel like a lot of Portuguese parents are okay with you dating someone if they're Portuguese, or they're like, it's just different.
Right.
If they're Portuguese than if they're not. And before my husband's like as American as they come, bright redhead. And before him, I had dated somebody who had my same they were Portuguese and they had my same last name.
Right.
And so it was like, oh my God, not only is my daughter dating a Portuguese person, but also she's my only child, my only daughter is going to carry on the family name. Like that was like, I mean, match made in heaven, right? Like
it's kind of like with your parents, because your parents have the same last name too.
Which is odd because for both of them, it was an immigration paperwork issue on both sides. Like neither one of them was supposed to have that last name. They both ended up with that last name because of immigration paperwork issues.
Right.
But then that was their last name and they had the same last name. Yeah.
So they're not related then.
Debatable. They've talked about like every time they were a little squirrely when I asked them that question, but they always say like, no. But then I'm like, yeah, but you talk about how you're both related to the same person or whatever. And they're like, oh, by marriage. I'm like, okay, fine. But like,
it's always by marriage.
Yeah. I mean, the like family trees and stuff for our relatives just get real complicated real quick because people were like, there was a lot of like siblings marrying siblings, like two brothers marrying two sisters.
Yeah, I have a lot of that situation too in my family on both sides. And
that just really complicates the family tree unnecessarily because then you end up with people who you're like, all right, like we have all the same cousins, but we're not cousins. Like, I don't understand. Like, it's really strange.
Yeah, I have the same thing. Like, I have it on my father's and my mother's side where like two sets of separate siblings married to each other. It just kind of like reminds me of how like being like related. I don't think I've said this story, so I apologize if I did and you're hearing it again. But I don't think I said the story where I almost went to my senior prom with my cousin. Had no idea he was my cousin. I liked this kid. He was in my math class. Again, he helped me with my math homework. And I had like kind of like a crush on him. Don't know if he had a crush on me, but we kind of had like talked about prom, hinted that we were kind of like, interested in going together. My grandmother dies. He's at my grandmother's wake. I think this guy likes me. And I'm like, oh my God, like he likes me so much. He came to my grandmother's wake. Then my father like waves me back. Like, come here. I want you to meet somebody. So he introduces me to that kid's father, though, not him yet, not the son, to the father. And was like, oh, he's at so-and-so, he's at Miprim, blah, 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 this is my cousin. So I'm like, okay, whatever, like. And then all of a sudden the kid comes over to his dad. And I'm like, and that's when we put two and two together, we were related. And I was like, fuck, I really liked you. So I think we were like third cousins.
Oh my God.
So it was like, yeah, so that didn't happen for prom.
Dodged a bullet.
I know, but I was really into him. And we still stay in contact now, here and there, like, but it's just, I was like, damn, like that was so close. That could have been something. And I wouldn't have never known if my grandmother didn't die.
Right. So
like, I guess thanks, Grandma.
Oh my God, so morbid.
She was like 95.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It was her time.
Just kidding, Bobo. I love you, Bobo.
So going back to when you were talking about your dad and the phone and the boys calling. So this is like not necessarily boy related, but just phone related in general. Remember how much we were on the phone? I mean, like nowadays it's just like, you don't really talk to people on the phone. It's all text-based communication.
Right.
But before, you'd just spend hours and hours and hours just talking on the phone. And the cell phone bills were so unforgiving for that activity.
Oh my God, yeah.
The cell phone bills at the time were like you had like a certain number of minutes that you couldn't go over. And then it was like
the text messages were
like 10 cents a message or something ridiculous.
Or 5 cents to like read it or something.
Yeah, like
which
I never understood. Like you're going to charge, I didn't send the message.
Right.
You're going to charge me to just receive the message. Charge the person who sent the message.
Right.
You can't charge me to receive it. Like I didn't consent to this message being sent to my phone. Like if somebody was just going to send me messages.
Exactly.
I shouldn't have to pay for that.
Right.
And so I never understood that. And
it's probably in the contract that we didn't read. Our parents didn't read.
No. And I remember my mom had a cell phone for so long. Like we talked about it in one of our early episodes that she had like the very first like bag phone that was in the car with a cord and everything. And like, so she had the cell phone plan forever. And then she eventually got like grandfathered in because she did like the rollover minute plan. Mm-hmm. And eventually rollover minutes went away. And she had accumulated so many rollover minutes. And then she got like grandfathered into this plan where she could still use her rollover minutes. And I remember her thinking like it was like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we went over minutes that much, but I guess we did. Because occasionally, for whatever reason, maybe you press the internet button on your phone by accident and try to close out of that real quick. For whatever reason, you would get a phone bill occasionally that was like a ridiculous amount of money, like hundreds of dollars. And at the time, phone bills were probably like $60 a month or something. And then this bill would come and it would be like $370. And it would be 75 pages long, just detailing every single phone call or text you ever made.
So it's funny because I remember I don't know if it was like my very first phone bill, but I was like in high school. I had I had a cell phone, and one of my bills was $600. And so when that bill came in, and I guess I'm assuming it was under like my mother's name, obviously, and I think she opened it, and when she saw that, her face like completely went white because she was like, "How am I gonna pay this without my father?" She didn't want my dad to know because I had gone over. It was because of text messaging. the 5 cents, 10 cents added up real fast.
You had that like side. Was this when you had that little sidekick phone?
Yeah, and
you had that sidekick. I mean, you could hammer out some text messages on that.
Yeah,
thing.
that's like so much fun to text on. So I still remember that, and like I still feel so bad for that. I think like my mom, she would have to like secretly make payments on it so my dad wouldn't know. Because she's like, if he knew, he would take the phone away, obviously. Like I would have no phone.
Right.
So like my mom had to like secretly try to make payments, and I didn't have like it's so awful. I didn't have like a job to like pay for it.
Right.
It's so selfish. But yeah, no, I still remember like my first like $600 phone bill. Just from, I know, and it was all from texting. Texting who?
Oh,
and what were you
God.
texting?
When that freaking phone bill would come in the mail and that package was real thick, you were like, oh shit.
And you're right. It was like every
was
message
so
was
thick.
detailed. I think now, like, do you have to log in to see the messages? Like, I don't know. I've logged into like my AT&T, like, I just did it right before I went on vacation because I didn't know if I needed to add the international thing. And like I saw the bill, but I don't see like any messages. Like I don't know I wonder if you have to like request if you want to see like your messages or something.
Well, you would never see like the content of the messages. Like
It would just be the phone numbers, right?
The phone numbers,
Yeah.
and then whether it was like incoming or outgoing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you if you thought your significant other was cheating, you could be like, why is this phone number showing up 80,000 times?
Yeah, and at the time it was that, or it would show like phone calls, and it would show you like how many minutes you were on the phone,
right?
And so like that's where like my dad would come in and be like, "Who's this phone number? Why did you spend 400 minutes on the phone with them?" Like he couldn't understand. Like
I catch myself sometimes still calling. Like I prefer to text, but sometimes like if you have to like tell a quick story, it's just easier to call.
yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just like, I still have that habit where I'm like, all right, let me just call them. I'll tell them what happened really quick. It's just going to get too complicated with texting.
Yeah.
And so like, but I know people don't like to talk on the phone anymore.
Right. But that's like a purpose. Like you have a purpose, something specific that you want to tell them.
Right.
Whereas like we would just spend, like there was no purpose.
No.
We would just call, like we'd get home after school, after having just been with each other all day at school, and then we would immediately call each other on the phone and just stay on the phone with each other for like the whole evening.
Yeah. For no reason.
Right.
Like I would get some hamburger. I would get some homework help. But other than that, like why do we need to be on the phone for like 6 hours after school?
We would just like watch TV shows. We'd be watching Seventh Heaven, just like watching it while we were on the phone, like just play by play live commentary.
Like I think secretly it's because we wanted to hang out like outside of school and after school, but like we obviously couldn't do that because like our parents worked and they were just too busy during the week. Like you probably couldn't take your daughter to hang out with someone during the week. Like you guys are just too busy during the week.
Right.
But so that was just like our way to like stay close and connected.
Yeah, I remember my grandmother hated it because I was usually at her house after school. Like, so one of my grandmothers, like the grandmothers are pretty active on the phone. Like,
yeah.
Their
Oh,
phone
yeah.
is like their lifeline to
Yeah.
all the like
Still
the
is.
neighborhood gossip and all that, right?
To find out who died in the
Yeah.
Azores.
Right. So like they'd be trying to make their shamadas
Yeah.
and their little phone calls, and I'm like, nope, I'm gonna be just hunkering down on this thing for like.
My aunts would always complain to my mother that they could never get a hold of like my mom because like the phone would always be busy, or if I was like online, they couldn't get through. Because as soon as I got home from, same thing, as soon as we got home from school, it was the phone or online, and finally when they would able to get through, they would get so annoyed. They would tell like my mom, like, hey, ta som shaman, ni gan ta spundan, blah, 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 I'm busy. And it's like, yeah, because it would be me on the phone the whole time. Like if there was ever an emergency, like no one could ever get through.
No, like when we had dial-up internet.
Yeah.
And you literally couldn't make a phone call the same time that you were on the computer.
No.
That was just so brutal. Because I wanted to be on the computer the whole evening.
Yeah.
and nobody could make any phone calls. Like if my mom tried to make a phone call, she'd pick up the phone and just be like,
Yeah. And sometimes if they called enough, they could like boot you off.
yes.
Like they would have to keep calling you like aggressively
Yeah.
to get through, to kick you off.
Yeah.
Just think like in the world today, like COVID couldn't have happened back then. Because like how would people have gone to work? Like everyone Zooms, everyone's like working from home. Like you couldn't work from home back then because you couldn't be on the phone and be online at the same time.
Oh my God, with that slow of an internet connection, could you imagine how long you'd be like writing emails or something, but like
You get disconnected. It would still show on the screen, but like you're typing, but it's not going to go through because you're not connected anymore.
oh my God, could you imagine? And then you have like kids home from school. They wouldn't be able to do remote schooling at the same time that you're doing remote working because only one dial up.
Right. Yeah. So like what would have happened?
Well, what happened in the
Yeah, I was gonna say the
Spanish flu of 1918?
Yeah, they said that they did like school through the radio, right?
Oh.
I think that's what, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like they did like something with the radio. I don't know too much of it. I like remember reading about it when like obviously when COVID was happening. I read that something like the teachers or something would do it like through the radio. Because there's like pictures of kids like hovering around the radio. But I don't know too much about that.
You know, that's so interesting though, because nowadays it's all like, I need verification that you're still there and you're still listening, and then it's you doing the work. And like back then it was just like, no, hunker down, gather around the radio, and we're just going to take your word for it that you're all listening. Right?
Exactly, yeah. Like now it's like you need to like confirm that you're, like if you're working from home, you need to like confirm that you're on, that you're like still like you're not idling.
You're moving your mouse every 2 seconds. Like
I think there's like an Instagram video where someone tied their mouse to I don't know if it was like to their Zumba machine, so like it could move their mouse.
Oh, the Roomba?
The Roomba, yeah. Sorry, I said Zumba as like the dance, so the mouse could like idle. When it would idle, it would move.
But yeah, those were different times, and they had like, they came out with like after 9 p.m. was like free nights and weekends. Remember?
Yeah, and then it was after 9.
Yeah. So all that did was like encourage me to stay up really late. Right?
It did, yeah.
Like, I'll call you after 9, okay, and then you'd stay up like all night talking to your friends.
Yeah, do you think it was like 9 till midnight?
I don't know. I must have gone into like the early morning hours. Those weren't like prime time hours. Those had to be.
I feel like my parents never knew that I was like not like, they never like, especially summer vacations. I was just like always on the phone at night and watching like the late night shows. And like my parents just thought I was in bed. Like I was in bed sleeping.
Right.
But I was like sneaking downstairs into the basement with the phone and putting the TV on.
We would do this thing where we would, when people had like call waiting and like three-way calling, we would do this thing where we would create almost like this like party line.
Yeah.
Where like, let's say like I call you and then we call someone on three-way and then they call someone on three-way, and you just like keep hooking people. Everyone's using their three-way calling and like keep adding people into the mix. And then at the end of the day, you end up with this like phone call that you have like 15 people on it, and you're all just like talking. And then they used to do like prank calls that way too.
Yeah. And then do you remember that there was like an actual like party line number that you could call? And it would just be, because you would, or is that the same thing? I'm trying to think. Because remember like there would be a phone number you could call and you was
was that like pornographic? Like what was that? Was that like a party line? Like, or
yeah, I think it might have been like inappropriate because like you would just like you would call the number and you would just like jump into this room, like little room that they would call it, and you could go into different rooms and be like, oh, who's in here? Type of thing.
Like chat roulette, but like for
the phone, yeah.
Was that what the party line was? So we were like just making our own with like friends and people we knew.
But I remember doing that too.
Yeah.
But then I remember there was like a number you could call. It was probably like somebody's house phone that you were just calling.
That probably showed up on the bill too.
Oh,
Like a multiplier. Like, we know you were talking to 15 people, so like just 15 minutes times 15 people.
Oh, no, you waited till after 9 o'clock for that.
Oh, big time.
So you wouldn't waste your minutes during the day. Oh, man. So it's about that time. Thanks for listening.
If you're enjoying our podcast, please just give us a review on whatever platform you're using to listen to us. You can also visit our website. It's folkandfad.com. We have transcripts available there of every episode. And you can also send us an email, mail@folkandfad.com. Or you can hit us up on Twitter. Same handle there, folkandfad.
And for Instagram, you can follow us at _It's Called Culture.